What's going on, guys? It's Charr here, back with another video. Today we're doing another content creator reveals tier list. I think I did this for the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. expansion box wave because there was a lot of really fun and cool and unique cards for the reveals. So we're going to do it again for both Wonder Man and Hercules. I'm really looking forward to this. Usually tier list content, or it's just a bit of fun, right? It's nothing too crazy, nothing too serious, but it is fun to talk about, speculate, and to just throw things in a tier list. You guys love tier lists. Tier lists are fun to make, so let's do it. Big disclaimer as always, please support every single one of these reveals. I'm going to be scrolling down on the official previews channel and the unofficial Marvel Champions Discord where they have all of these chronicled. I will have all the links to every single reveal down in the description below. Before you watch this and before you hear my probably wrong opinions on these cards, you should please go and support everyone who got reveals officially from FFG. It's super cool that they do this for the community, and I'm doing this a week after reveal season is completely over, so I'm not trying to take any views from them. Please give them love, give them support, and make sure we keep getting these reveals because they're really cool. A lot of these reveals got me pretty excited starting off, and we're just going to go ahead and scroll down in this channel here and begin. Technically, the first one was from the Discord and the Reddit community, so let's actually start with those, because it seems like they forgot to put it in order. So this is the first card we have here. So as always, like we did in the previous tier list, and I literally just lifted one to one. We have fun and power ranking here. So let's start off with this card, Disarming Defense. It's a defense card that says hero interrupt defense. When your hero defends against an attack, it gets +2 for that attack, +2 defense for that attack. Okay, pretty good. If you take no damage from that attack, discard an attachment on the attacking enemy with the text hero action or hero response. I really like this one. I think this is a really cool card, and I think it's really good in a lot of high difficulty scenarios. If you think about something like Ronan the Accuser or something like the Venom Goblin, both of those have like really nasty hero action attachments, and being able to get rid of them, let's see, it's called the Universal Weapon Marvel CDB, right? Something like this where it says hero action, take 2 damage, deal yourself an encounter card to shuffle this in the encounter deck. I mean, this automatically just goes ahead and gets rid of it, right? You look here, if you take no damage from the attack, of course you have to perfect defend Ronan, which is a bit to ask for any hero, but assuming that you can do that, you can go ahead and discard that, and you don't have to deal with it the rest of the game. You don't have to get the encounter card, you don't have to shuffle it in. I think this card is really good, and in the decks that it can see play in, I think it will be quite powerful and strong. So just for that reason, let me go ahead and copy it here. Just for that reason, I think I'll go ahead and put it probably at a 4 in the power level. What I like about it is that there's just, you know, this is a card that can exist. It has a reason to exist, and it does something that no other card in the game really does to this point, which I think is quite cool. If we're looking at the fun category, I'm not a big proponent. I like protection decks, but I'm not a big fan of one cost protection events. When you look at this in a different vacuum, so in power, I think it can be, actually, now I'm thinking about it, I think I'm gonna move it to B tier. In the scenarios it's really good in, it's really good, but it's not a card you'll put in every deck, right? It's kind of niche in that way. If you think about fun, I'm not a huge fan of one cost defense events. I think the only ones I play is Desperate Defense. The other ones are a bit too, it's the same problem that they're a bit too niche for me, like a bit too niche. Like I'm not a huge fan of one cost defense events. I find if you have a certain number of them, they clog your hands too much. So I think at a very quick glance, I'll just go ahead and throw it into the C tier. That's it for Disarming Defense. Let's do the second reveal from the Discord, Reddit, and Facebook communities, which is a Wonder Man card, which is the card, What Are You? Which I think has really cool art, and I love the quote here. I think it's kind of really cool and really emblematic when he kind of gets when he's revived in the comic, so to say, and he has like his ionic energy eyes and form, and everyone's like, yo, what's going on with this guy? I think the theming is really cool here. Joey Vasquez, my goat on the art. Superpower, Forced Interrupt. When Wonder Man would be defeated, instead you can set his hit point dial to 4, change him to alter ego form. You may tuck events with a printed lightning resource from your discard pile under Ionic Physiology until there are 3 cards tucked there. Remove this card from the game. I think this is one of the best you can't die cards in the game. The thing about Wonder Man is going to be playing that kind of needle of healing and taking damage with his specific energy resource. He's going to be playing kind of like that line, and this is just some insurance, right? So it's superpower, so you can discount it with like a death focus or something. And it's just like really strong. You get to go to alter ego, so usually in most scenarios you'll be safe if you have a horde of encounter cards. You get the heal to 4, and you get to fully fill up your ionic physiology, which we'll see later. There's cards that combo with that, and he has actual alter ego hooks on some of his supports. But the fact you can tuck those cards and you can just flip up and do a big swing for 4, or do some other thing to get value out of your tucked cards. I think this is really cool, and it's honestly a reason to even take a KO. You can just take a really big hit for somebody, or just be like, okay, this guy has like piercing and overkill and all these attachments on him. I'll take this really big hit. I'll get the free flip down, and then we'll go from there. I think this card's really, really strong and very cool. When we think about it in terms of like a power perspective, I think in terms of like, I guess if we're making a comparison to this card, I think that it's probably, a bit stronger, I would say. It's probably a bit stronger than Disarming Defense. It's kind of hard to rate a hero card and an aspect card. If we're talking about the self revives in hero kits, I think What Are You definitely goes in the A tier. It's very strong, and I think it's really good, and it keeps him alive. In terms of fun, I would say self revives can be fun, but they're not always fun. So what I mean by that is that it's not something you put on the table and you feel super powerful. I like Wonder Man. Like, I kind of like what he has going on. I like the character in the comics that I've been reading and learning a bit more about his history. So with all those reasons, I think the card's pretty fun. But when you put it down at the table, it doesn't really do anything until you take that KO, or you take that really risky undefended hit. And then it's like, boom, you like power up your ionic, you power up your ionic physiology, and then you go from there. Again, make sure to just support all the Discord, Facebook, and Reddit communities. Now we're going on to Web Warrior Fanatics reveals, which I think was the second one. Oh, Cameo. So this is a card I was really excited for, and join the Discord, shameless plug if you're not in there already, the Final Gambit, where I was talking about this card when they initially teased it on the gameplay kind of discussion they had a few weeks back. I was really excited for this card, and I would say after seeing it, my fun factor is probably going to be quite low, and the power I think might be quite low. Maybe the fun will still be pretty high. If you haven't read this card, it's a support setup card, max 1 per deck. As a setup ability, you search your collection for an identity-specific ally for an identity not in the game. You shuffle that ally into the deck. Then you have to discard 2 cards from your hand and remove this card from the game. I think it's super awesome you can get someone else's identity-specific ally that isn't in the game. I think there's so many fun and unique combos you can do for that. The problem is they made it too restrictive. The fact that it's a setup ability means you can never open that ally in your opening hand, because of the fact that it will be in your deck after you have gone through and resolved your mulligans. On top of that, if that wasn't bad enough, I'm going to say quote unquote, you also have to take a huge tempo hit of discarding 2 of the starting 6 cards from your hand, meaning that your first turn is going to be extremely weak. And in many games of Marvel Champions, having a very strong first turn usually sets up for the rest of the game. So intentionally nerfing your first turn to put an ally that you might not even see until like the second, third, or fourth hand is pretty bad. You can get around it with a suit up, but then you have to realize you're suiting up with a 4-card hand, and there's very few heroes who have the economy that can actually make something really good. Like, the ally has to be so broken and has to be so strong to make, I think, this tempo hit worth it. And so for that reason, I think I would go ahead and put Cameo in terms of power. I would go ahead and put it in D tier. I think this is a very weak card, all things considered. I don't think I have much more to say about it than that. I just don't think the card is very strong at all. And maybe someone will prove me wrong and have a really consistent, deck. But I think almost every time you'll make a Cameo deck, and again, the card isn't in our hands and we haven't had people cook with it forever, but first impressions, almost every single Cameo deck is probably just going to be worse than the most optimal deck a hero can make, but that means it will be fun. I still do like the idea behind the Cameo. I think it's really cool and fun and different. And I would probably still put it in like a B tier, but man, a part of having fun in Marvel Champions is having a good game, and I don't think that Cameo sets you up to have very good games, if I had to say it in a vacuum. Too much of a tempo hit, too strong, but I do love the idea behind the card. Next one is a 1-cost Justice event, which, okay, I'm ready for new generic Justice cards. Battlefield Benevolence. I love this art, by the way. You have Peter putting his hand out to the Vulture, which I think is really cool. Tactic, 1-cost event Tactic. Hero action, heal 2 damage from an enemy, confuse that enemy. Huh? What's the trick? from the Vulture. I think this card's awesome. I think this is kind of like a side grade of Upside the Head, if you really think about it, where most heroes will have an action where like you can turn them sideways, or sorry, their basic activation is usually about 1 to 2 attack. So if you swing at a villain for dealing 2 damage, then you play a Battlefield Benevolence, it's kind of like an Upside the Head, which is like make a basic attack and you know, confuse an enemy. But if you're exhausted, Battlefield Benevolence can still work. Let's say you have some sort of upgrades, or you have allies that can ping the villain in order to activate, you know, the cost area. You have to fulfill the heal 2 damage in order to confuse them. If you have any sort of like, it's just a lot more, I think, versatile and useful than something like an Upside the Head, even though Upside the Head does have uses because it can stun, so it's not exactly the same card. But I think this card's really cool. I love kind of like the art and the theming and how it all fits together. I think confuses are pretty strong. There are steady and stalwart villains, so of course you would never bring this card to it, but I think it's fairly strong, and I think solo players are going to like this a lot. I don't play a ton of solo as much these days anymore, but I could definitely see putting this into a deck if I was still really big there. I think on power wise, man, do I put it above? The question is, do I put it above Disarming Defense? I think having a Confuse on Demand is pretty strong, and it's also very low costed. I think I could see it going above Battlefield Disarming Defense just because of how versatile you can use this. And maybe I should shift these down. Maybe Disarming Defense should go down, because I'm thinking like Battlefield Benevolence is probably in B tier. There's a lot of steady, there's a lot of stalwart, and especially in multiplayer, singular confuse isn't super big. Like, I don't know if it's worth the deck slot from different things, so I think I'll put it there. In terms of how fun I think this card is, I think it's pretty fun. I love the art. I kind of like, you know, I didn't even talk about the flavor text. Let's check that out real quick. What's the trick from the Vulture, which I think is super fun. I mean, I like the art, I like kind of the effect. I think it's fun. Like, you have some fun theming here. It does something that helps you in the game. Sure, let's throw it in a B tier. So that's it for Web Warrior Fanatics reveals. Please make sure you go ahead and check them out. You know, check out their videos. You guys probably know who he is. Check out the reveal, and he did a nice, cool tier list here where he's rating every single identity-specific ally. Moving on to Nelson's reveal. So we have 2 more cards from Wonder Man here. So let's go ahead and look it over. So the first one is a 1-cost upgrade. It is called the Signature Sunglasses, which I think is awesome. I think the sunglasses are one of my favorite parts of Wonder Man and his design. So it's an item as a response. After you change form, choose to either tuck an event or a resource card with a printed lightning resource from your discard pile under Ionic Physiology. So this is a way to get his economy going, tucking cards underneath his upgrade without having to spend events to do it. Or you can add a card tucked in Ionic Physiology to your hand. And I think this card kind of opens up Wonder Man, right? Before he seemed kind of like this really strong bruiser. He had like healing, he had the economy. But this adds a whole new dimension where he's able to pick out cards he needs. You can play around this tucking mechanic in a way that you have a lot of agency over, that isn't as random, in my opinion, like something like a Silk, for instance. You have the cards, you make your deck, so you know what cards you'd want to tuck. You can look at kind of how the game is going, what kind of, you know, the board state looks like. What should I tuck here? What should I add to my hand? Should I leave this for a big attack? Am I using my 4 attack stat for something? I think this card is super cool. And of course, like I said, I'm self-admittedly kind of a Wonder Man fan now, and I think that the Signature Sunglasses, yeah, I think power-wise, this is probably going to be one of the cards that really brings Wonder Man all together, in my opinion. I think this is going to be a card that it's going to be a card you want to play. I mean, other than that, it's going to be a card where when you're playing Wonder Man and you're not, you know, having this card on the table, I think you will see a drastic difference just because of how strong kind of recurring specific events is underneath your Ionic upgrade. I think it's going to be really powerful. In terms of where I think it's going to be, in terms of where I think it's going to be in terms of, what's it called? Where do I think it will be in terms of fun? I like Wonder Man. I like the sunglasses. It's not super fun. It's not like it's an attack event or anything. So I guess we could put it somewhere like, yeah, we could put it somewhere like right here in the A tier. I think that makes sense. Yeah, we could just go ahead and throw it here. I don't know. It's pretty fun. You get your sunglasses on before it. He doesn't. Both of these cards have his sunglasses as kind of like main features for him, which I think is a pretty iconic part of his design. Even though he's in the most iconic hero, I think this card is awesome. And it's also an item, so if you go shopping with Jubilee, Jubilee can help find you a new pair of sunglasses. Maybe just as cool as hers. Then we move on to the next card, which is the alter ego support I was talking about, Wonder Fans. So again, really fun art. I mean, this is an art from the actual comic, but this is art that was made for the game. So you have all Wonder Man's fans here. You see like his suit, his glasses. Civilian, it's a Wonder Fan, so it's all the people here. As an alter ego action, you can exhaust Wonder Fans, which I think is an awesome name for a card. Choose to either tuck one event with a printed lightning resource from your discard pile under Ionic Physiology, or draw one card. So I think those are super. I think there's a lot of synergy here too, where he's gonna have a lot of ways to tuck event cards. What's it called? Tuck event. Oh, this can tuck his resource card too, which means you can add his 4-cost resource back to your hand, which is really strong. Another thing I didn't notice, you can tuck one event card with a printed lightning resource from your discard under Ionic Physiology, which you can then grab with your signature sunglasses, or you can use it to draw a card to maybe you're playing some allies, you're leaning into an ally build. Again, I think this gives him a reason to go alter ego. Now, do I think alter ego is going to be the best thing Wonder Man can do? I'm not exactly sure. But that being said, both of those cards give him a reason to go alter ego, and when you have them both down, or you have one, when you get either of them down, it gives him a reason to start flipping, to start going back and forth, and I think it'll be pretty cool, especially when you can tuck this resource. Let's say you find it early, take 3 damage, generate 4 resources, then you get the signature sunglasses, tuck it back underneath, and then the turn back, when you flip back up, you can add that quad resource back to your hand. Maybe you had Wonder Fans when you were down, so you draw a card too, or you tuck something else. So there's just a lot of combos he can do, and it gives him a reason to flip, which I always love and I'm a big fan of. I think Wonder Fans is really fun. I think it can definitely go in the A tier. Just the naming alone, it's probably got to be one of the best card names in the game. It's just Wonder Fans, Wonder Man. It's just really funny. In terms of power, I think this is definitely a bit weaker than the sunglasses. How much weaker? Probably not significantly so. I think I would probably put it around what are you, if I had to guess, because obviously the sunglasses are a bigger reason to go alter ego because it can recur that quad resource, but the Wonder Fans is a good bit of economy support. Every time you go alter ego, you can drop a card, or you can just cycle what's on your Ionic upgrade, which is giving you more attack, can give you, you know, ways to recur stuff with your sunglasses. So yeah, I think it's solid for sure. But that's it for Nelson's reveal. So of course, make sure you go and check out Nelson's channel and this video here for the new card reveals. Then we're moving on. I think this was the end of, what's it called? No, it was not the end yet. So, yeah, we hadn't finished the Wonder Man week yet. So this is more cards coming in the Wonder Man pack. Thanks to La Mano de Thanos. So make sure you go ahead and check them out. They actually did this on Twitch, so make sure to check out the VOD. And they had 3 cards to show off, so let's go ahead and talk about them really quickly. So we're starting off with the first one, which is this Hawkeye ally. So it's a 3-cost Hawkeye Clint Barton ally. So make sure you're keeping track of your unique rules. We have 1 thwart, 1 attack, 3 health. He enters play with 4 arrow counters on him. Familiar? Then we're going to go response. After an ally makes a basic thwart, remove 1 arrow counter from Hawkeye, deal 2 damage to a minion. So I think this card's really interesting. I think solo players, or maybe people who play at lower player counts, may not see a use for this ally. And he's definitely weird, right? So it's a response to an ally making a basic thwart, dealing 2 damage for a minion. But it doesn't say another ally, meaning you can have him thwart for 1 and deal 2 damage for a minion. It's kind of like very similar to the Daredevil core box ally, which I think he attacks and removes a threat, or he thwarts and deals a damage or something like that. It's some variation. Hawkeye can trigger this on himself, and you have 1 other ally and there's any minions on the board. Essentially, you can have your allies do what you want to do. So you have a Dazzler and a Hawkeye or something, and you have them thwart the main. But by thwarting the main, let's say there's another minion in front of you or another player in the game, you're able to deal 4 damage to minions. I think this card is super well costed for what it does. I think very similar, maybe not as timeless as maybe the leadership one because it's just when they enter play, but this one just gives you a lot of control, and I think it'll find its way into a lot of decks. I think this card is really fun. I love the design that he can be the one thwarting and also do the damage. I just think that's pretty cool there. So if we're looking at it in terms of a power perspective, I think this is probably a very, what's it called? I think this is probably a very solid, what's it called? I think this is a solid ally. I think we can put him solidly in the A tier. Good stat line. I mean, good stat line, good effect, and good cost. I think all of those are a recipe for success for a good ally. We're looking in terms of fun. I like playing allies, and I think this ally is themed really well and really cool. So because of that, I think I'll also throw it in. I'll also throw it in the A tier. I could see making a Justice deck, big Justice kind of ally pile, and having them and just throwing this in here for good stuff, helping people ping out minions on the board or leaving them up. I think it's really cool. I don't think it immediately screams Justice to me, but I think that's a good thing. Justice can feel kind of stuck in its ways and in a lot of different points, so this could be cool. Next one we have is a 2-cost basic support, unique Jarvis as Avenger and Persona as a response. After an Avenger hero changes into alter ego form, exhaust Jarvis and choose. That identity gets +2 recovery until the end of the phase, or discard a status card from that identity. I think this card kind of reads a bit interesting at the beginning. It feels like a bit worse than Recuperation Room, or I don't think that's the one I'm thinking about. Crew quarters, I think, where it's like alter ego action, flip down, heal 1, and then you can do it again the next turn. So essentially you heal for 2, and the effect on Jarvis here is also like they only get +2 recovery, which can be kind of weird, but I think there's kind of like hidden value in this. I think there's a lot of Avengers that can run an organizational support build with like the Quinn carriers, and this is just another Avengers support that people can go ahead and tap and generate resource off of if you're not going alter ego that form. Also, discarding a status card or getting recovery is good. There's a lot of times when I'm flipping down and I'm instantly recovering because I'm low, and being able to get that or give it to any other Avenger on the table to get that recovery is pretty good. Now, I don't think this card is insanely strong by any means. I think it's fun, and I like that Jarvis is in the game in some capacity, but I'm not gonna like sit here and glaze it super hard. I don't think it's the strongest card of all time. I think it's solidly probably a B tier pick if I had to guess. So I'm just gonna go ahead and throw it there for now. I just think you have to be playing a lot of Avengers, or you have to be playing an Avenger that has a lot of money that can get this down without really, worrying about it. So I think a solid B tier for power is fine for this card. Fun, I think we'll also do. I like building out and I like support, so I think for a fun factor, we could probably end up doing, a B tier as well. I like Jarvis. I think it's cool he's in the game, and I think it's kind of cool because after the X-Men wave of all like the really basic, X-Mansion, the X-Jet, and then you also have like Stepford Cuckoos and all Moira McTaggart and all these supporting characters. I think getting Jarvis in a similar vein of that is kind of overdue and very, very cool. Last one we have here is Swordsman, which is Jacques. I'm not going to even try. I think it's Jacques something. I'm not even going to try and say that last name. 4-cost ally, Avenger, 4 health, with 2 thwart, 2 attack, 2 consequential on the thwarting, and 1 consequential on the attack. It says Swordsman basic attacks gain piercing and hero response after a boost card is turned up during an undefended attack. Declare Swordsman as the defender without exhausting him. I think this ally is pretty cool for a lot of reasons. I love that he's a 4-cost basic Avenger ally. When you play a lot of these Avengers kind of like tribal decks or these Avenger archetype decks nowadays, when you look at like the basic Avengers lineup, there really isn't a lot there. It's like Blade, it's like War Machine 4-cost ally, and I like the fact there's just another basic Avengers ally you can do, and I think he's pretty strong. 4 cost for 2 attack, you can turn sideways 4 times, and he has piercing. Piercing is still one of those keywords that isn't as widely distributed as you think it is. Of course, there's some characters that have like ways to ping tufts really easily, but I still think piercing is a keyword that deserves some respect in this game, and his response is good. Let's say you want to turn him sideways over and over, to get all his piercing hits out and whatnot. He can't do that, but also you could have him maybe like attack, and then maybe he like blocks like a minion activation or something, and maybe you're playing like protection, you have like an ops room and you get a threat off, and then so you can block like a minion activation, and then you can use his response on another player in multiplayer to also make him the defender of that attack as well. I think there's just a lot of really cool combos he can do, and I think it's just a really cool ally to be in the game. I think he's fun. I like allies. I think they're fun. In terms of how strong I think he is, I think we're probably going to end up in a similar place as Jarvis here. I don't think he's the most... I don't think he's like crazy powerful or anything, but I think he is an option if you need an Avenger name, and he's not the worst Avenger name by any means. If you're not in protection and you're not playing Black Knight, I think about throwing in, a Swordsman in there for getting some piercing. Maybe you're on, I don't know, like a Valkyrie who could really use piercing in some you know, avenue because she doesn't have it in her base kit. I mean, this could be a guy that you can just keep on the board anytime there's an annoying tough on the board. Just have him pierce it for you and move it on with your day. I like allies, but again, I would probably see myself, no, I think I could put him up there with Hawkeye. I think that this is a very fun ally. I think it's a fun design as well. So we're going to go ahead and throw him up in the A tier as well. Yeah, I like this Swordsman card. I think he's really cool. And I like the designs they're doing. They're kind of giving these more modern design sensibilities, kind of these older archetypes, which I just think is a ton of fun. And I'm just looking forward to how they continue to do it in the future. So we're moving on here. That was the end of Mano. The Thanos' reveals. Make sure to show them some love for sure. Again, we're not trying to take any credit for any of these reveals. I did not get these reveals. So make sure you support all the people who put in the hard work of making these videos, of doing all these things. And yeah. So now we're moving on to Kennedy Hawk. One of a good friend of mine in the community for sure. He had me on for one of his reveal seasons a couple of reveal seasons ago. So let's go ahead and show the two cards they showed off today. So the first one we have is a upgrade, tactic upgrade, and another tactic upgrade. So Cyclops is even good as one of my favorites in this game. Let's see what we have here. First, caught in the crossfire, an aggression tactic upgrade. Attach when non-elite minion attack, max 1 per minion. When a friendly character attacks, deal 1 damage to attached minion. I think this card is pretty fun, and I think there's a lot of like aerial, I think there's a lot of aggression upgrade support that's been coming out recently. There was a lot in the Tigra deck, stuff like the air cover and whatnot, that you get these minion attachments really easily, and I like this card. It's almost like a zero cost. You just put it on a minion that's really annoying, maybe has retaliate or something like that, and you just ignore it. So you throw it on that minion and you just attack other things. You either attack the villain or you attack other minions on the board, and it's just a really efficient way to get rid of minions on the board. When I saw this card, I thought it was really, really cool. And again, I'm looking at this primarily at the game now from a multiplayer perspective, at least at 2 players. I find these cards super cool, super efficient and thematic, but in solo, it might make more sense for you just to hit that minion yourself than trying to get around it with caught in the crossfire. I think this card is really good, and I think it will find its way into some decks. I'm not the biggest aggression player though, so I would take it with a grain of salt where I think the power level is going to be. In terms of fun, I do like this card a lot. I think I'd probably throw it in the B tier. I think B tier is probably fine for this card. It is cool to just put this on an enemy and just watch them get ticked down slowly but surely. Also, you could put it on the dragon, which I think takes double from each single hit of this card. I hope it's not just attacks. I think it's damage. So the dragon can just get bursted down by having your allies just hit everything else but him because it's printed lightning resource, which I think is super cool. Power-wise, maybe I'm talking too much here, or overrating this card. I think it's probably a solid A tier. I think this is one of these aggression upgrade tactics that, this is a card that you would want to search out. Of course, there's the ones like Mark that give you overkill. There's the one that heals you when you defeat the minion. But I mean, this one, if you have a really annoying or nasty minion, there's a ton of minions in the mod set, I could see this card putting in some work. Moving on to the next one, we have coordinated effort upgrade event tactic. Attach to an encounter card in play, max 1 per encounter card. While paying costs on attached card, any player may help pay those costs. So this is a really interesting, what's it called? This is a really interesting card that has a lot of applications for especially a lot of the main schemes and villain cards that have either you have to pay resources into them or limited ones per phase. There's people who are a lot smarter than me and a lot more rule savvy in this game that have found kind of cool and unique uses for this. But for how I play the game and my understanding, I probably won't be playing a lot of this card. Besides the fact that with Cyclops, this is again another thing you can put on an enemy to get Optic Blast for free the entire game, because it does not have temporary and it does not go away. So for Cyclops specifically, I think it's pretty powerful, but in terms of like, will this card ever find its way into my decks? Until I learn more about kind of, paying costs and phases like that with people in multiplayer, I can't see myself playing this. So for that reason, I'll probably rate it pretty low on the power scale. Fun, mostly because I think if we're being realistic here, I think if we're looking at the fun factor, I'm probably just going to go ahead and put this above. I'll probably put this in C tier. This isn't like a super fun card. I'm sure, yes, the Cyclops synergy does get a couple points from me because I love Cyclops, one of my favorite heroes in the game. That being said, it's just not a super interesting card. It just helps you pay costs easier and you lose a card in your hand to do it. If we're talking about power, again, there's going to be a lot of people who are a lot smarter than I am who know the true power of this card. But because I am not one of those people, I'm just going to go ahead and also throw this in the D tier for power. I don't know. I feel like when you're dealing with well-made decks and players who kind of understand what's going on in the game, usually paying costs in some of these scenarios where this could get a lot of work, maybe like in a Sandman or like getting rid of cards from the collection or something like that. Most of them are on top of that in general, so then you also really wouldn't play this card because you're losing a card to do something that people are already taking care of. Makes it a bit weird. So that's just my considerations for this card. Of course, make sure you go ahead and check out the reveal video. I will have them all linked in the description below. Then, of course, as always, you have the Critical Encounters podcast, which is showing us a couple of the cards from Wonder Man's Nemesis set. Now, last time, I don't think I rated these on the tier list. I'm not going to rate them either, but I will go over them briefly. So we have his brother here. We have the Grim Reaper, Cyborg with Quick Strike, 2 scheme to attack, and 3 health as a forced response. After the Grim Reaper attacks and defeats an ally, deal that ally's controller a face-down encounter card. So this guy comes out, hits you for 2, and if he defeats an ally, you get an extra encounter card, so basically you don't want to jump block him with an ally in case you are going to get defeated by that attack. That being said, 3 health and also he's not elite means this is a very easy ally to kind of get rid of. This makes it really kind of, you were already probably thinking of playing Face the Past with Wonder Man, but this just makes it kind of a no-brainer. Just take the 2, knock out the Grim Reaper, and then just take 3 cards and everything like that. This isn't a super scary card to be thrown into the encounter deck either, and I think it's a pretty weak Nemesis, all things considered. We have brother versus brother here. If only you were my real brother, instead of this monstrosity you've become. As an additional cost to attack Grim Reaper, you must discard 1 card from your hand and 2 per player threat. This can actually be kind of nasty in 4 players. It goes up to 8 threat, which is not nothing. It does have that extra, you know, I always forget what this icon's called, but that one's probably one of the nastiest ones, especially in multiplayer if there's a ton of activations going out. And so if this comes out with Shadow of the Past or Pursued by the Past, it can actually be somewhat nasty, but he doesn't have Villainous either, so it's not like a huge deal. But yeah, I mean, this is a pretty nasty side team, but the actual minion, Nemesis itself, is not very strong in my opinion. Then we look here at Scythe Strike. If Grim Reaper is in play, he activates against you, so you're going to get hit for 2, which is basically nothing. And then it says, otherwise take 2 indirect damage, which can be something. I honestly think that's probably the worst part of this card than the top one. I think taking 2 indirect is something you will have to think about and consider, you know, thinking about how many copies are in the deck, and nothing will get in my way. Pretty cool Nemesis. I mean, his Nemesis was always going to be his brother, if you know anything about him from the comics, so that makes sense for sure. So now we're going to go ahead and start with the Hercules reveals. And so we have another set of 5 more reveals here. I'm pretty sure, yeah, I think it was last starting on 1/26. And actually, I think it's been a bit more than a week. It's maybe been 2 weeks away since the reveals have come out. Maybe not. Maybe I'm crazy. But yes, we're going to go ahead and start with Stretch 22, which congratulations to another good content creator friend of mine, Stretch 22, for his reveals. And let's talk about the 2 cards he revealed. But of course, make sure you go ahead and support and check out the video. So the first one we have here is Olympus, which is a 0 cost support. We're getting into Hercules, and this is the one I was kind of hesitant about. Hercules looked really interesting, but I wanted to see if this card would really bring the characters together in a way that was interesting. So one thing I did really love about his design is being a 4-hander, all of his cards being like 0 cost or 1 cost, which is really good for the economies of 4-hander. So we got a 0 cost support, location Olympus, resource, exhaust Olympus, generate a wild resource for each gift card you control. I think this card is awesome. You get it down for 0, but it can be super powerful and turn into a ton of different resources once you start clearing his labors. Now my problem is this doesn't necessarily help you clear the labors, but I'm not going to consider that right now. I think this is probably one of the stronger cards in his kit, which means I think it can have a good place on the tier list. So let's go ahead and get this one rated here. So talking about Olympus, I think it's really cool. In terms of power wise, again, I'm not going to try and rate this in terms of where I think he will land in terms of like how consistently he can clear his labors and whatnot. So I think in terms of like looking at cards in Hercules kit, I think this is probably one of the stronger cards. I like that it can be a triple resource generator, and even with 1 labor cleared, getting a 0 cost quote unquote resource gen is very strong. So I don't want to discount that, and I think it is a good card for sure. So I think A tier. I think this is probably one of the better cards. You know, it's going to help him with his economy, especially because it's a 4-hander, and all of that. In terms of fun, like I said, I like building out supports and whatnot, and so I think going in with that methodology and kind of ideology, I think I'll also just throw this in a B tier here. I love that it's like 0 cost, so it feels like almost nothing to get down. Of course, it doesn't really do anything until a labor is cleared, but again, we're kind of ignoring that aspect of it in terms of does it help him clear his labor or not, even though it might be kind of foolish to do that once we look back at this video after they're out and after we had them in our hands for a while. Moving to the second card being able to be revealed, and this is kind of analogous, not to the Son of Zeus card, but I think as a tag event, we have Wisdom of Athena. Reduce the cost to play this card by 1 for each gift card you control. Hero action, thwart, remove 4 threat from a scheme. Zounds, is that you, oh sister of mine, Hercules? So I love the art and I love kind of like the flavor text on this card. But this is kind of one of the interesting parts of Hercules' kit where he gets a triple resource generator, but his both attack and thwart events at max kind of gifts will not cost him anything. So like your Olympus support is really good when you have 1 gift because then they cost 2, but then at 2 gifts they only cost 1, so then you don't really want to tap your resource generator for that. So it's kind of this interesting dilemma that Hercules has going on here. But looking at this card at face value, 3 for 4 threat removed is quite bad. This isn't even like, so when looking at kind of like the cost benefit analysis, 2 for 4, it's kind of like 4 justice at 1 gift, but like 3 for 4 is exceedingly bad. I could have easily seen this being 3 for 5, but maybe they didn't want to make 1 for 5 threat removal a thing, or even 0 for 5 with all his gifts cleared. But I just don't think this card, it's like one of those cards that's a necessity in this kit because he needs to be able to clear his labors, but I just don't think this card is very good. It doesn't really do anything else. And it's only better than an aspect card when you have 2 gifts, but it doesn't really help him get to that gift clearing. It's really hard to rate these cards on kind of like a power wise and scale and whatnot, because it's just hard to think about Hercules in a vacuum without his labors, without his gifts, because he's so tied to them. But yeah, I think power wise, maybe we'll throw this as our first C tier here. That might be a good idea. Where are we at? Yeah, maybe we'll throw this in the first C tier. I don't think this card is great by any means. Where is this card? Should be under here. There we go. I just don't think this card is great by any means. I think it's okay. But he does need it because he just needs cards to be able to clear his labors that he brings into play in order to get his gift economy rolling and all of that stuff. In terms of where I think in the fun, though, I really do like kind of the theming of this card. I do like the warning as well. So with all of those things being considered, I don't know, I could see this card being kind of fun. I just like Wisdom of Athena. I like that it's not even him doing the thwart action. It's the flavor text is really fun. The person thwarting is his sister. You have like this cool art, so I think that's pretty cool. Or is it sister that it says? Yes, it is. So I thought this card's pretty cool on a fun scale. Make sure to check out Stretch22 for his previews. Moving up, we have the reveal from Winning Hand and Ray's Plays Games. It was on episode 87.5. Make sure you check out Boom Guy and Ray's Plays Games, both of their channels. Check out the video, and let's go ahead and look at what we've got here. So I'm actually going to look at Prince of Power first because I think the other one is more interesting to talk about. So 1 cost upgrade, Prince of Power. As an Olympus title, hero response. After Hercules attacks and defeats an enemy, exhausts Prince of Power. Heal 1 damage from Hercules for each point of excess damage dealt by that attack. I really do like this card. I think it's really cool to get some sort of healing in hero form when you don't want to flip down every single turn. I like that there's kind of a hook for him to do excess or do something with excess damage, especially because you want to like be beating up these really big enemies. Sometimes you might have like a really big swing, and instead of that really big swing going into nothing, it gets to heal him and like help keep the bruiser kind of 4-hand, 6-hand alter ego going. Keep that fantasy going without forcing you to go down to alter ego. I like that it's a 1 cost support, but I will say it's kind of weak in terms of the turn you put it on the board. If there's not really any minions for you to hit, it's not crazy. I think in terms of where I would say it is on the fun meter, I like this. I kind of like the art. I like kind of the theming of the card. I think it's pretty cool. Let's just throw it in, yeah, B tier for fun. I like healing. I like being able to stay up, which means I can call actions and use, my basic activations and whatnot. So yeah, let's go for it. We'll do that in the B tier. And then when we want to look at, in terms of what I think is in power, for Hercules specifically, I think we'll also just throw it in a B tier if I had to think about it. I think it's fine. I think it will help him, but I feel like Hercules will be one of those characters that until he actually has a couple of his labors done or a couple of his gifts on the board, I feel like he doesn't really want to stay hero form the entire time. He kind of probably needs the extra cards to help him clear his labors. So it doesn't have a ton of value, I think, early in the game, but later in the game, I could definitely see it being very, very good for him. This is the card I wanted to talk about, and this is the card that I was kind of looking forward to. When you looked at his one card, Son of Zeus, which I can go ahead and bring up really quickly, it was kind of confusing why they showed off this card without showing off kind of the weapon that he could tap and untap and whatnot. Where is it? Yeah, this 2-cost event, Son of Zeus. As a hero action, you ready him. If you control at least 1 gift, you can ready an identity specific upgrade. 2 gifts, you gain a tough, and 3, you draw a card. This card is really awesome and really, really cool in that way. And I thought this card was one of the coolest cards in his kits in terms of like the art and the theming and everything, what it looks like. It's a really awesome card, but we didn't really know because none of his gifts did anything. They didn't tap to do anything. So we're like, well, what is the identity specific upgrade that he's able to ready and get a benefit off of? Well, the answer to that is the Golden Mace here. So it's an Olympus weapon restricted, and it says when Hercules makes a basic attack, exhausts the Golden Mace, he gets +1 attack for his attack. For each gift card you control, that attack gains overkill. So killers, there's some synergy with that excess damage in the Prince of Power, and he gets +1 attack for each gift card you control, which could be a 1-cost upgrade that gives him +3 attack. But the big thing about this is that he doesn't get any attack with 0 gifts, and that's a very common trend with him. So you're looking at Hercules starting off, you have a 3-cost thwart event, you have a 3-cost attack event, and you have a 1-cost hero specific upgrade that doesn't even give you any benefits at 0 gifts. This card I think is very good, and it's going to be very strong to get Hercules moving in the early game. With 1 gift, you'll get up to 3 attack with overkill, so you can swing with like 4, because I think his hero card has 3 attack. I would guess. I'm not. I guess I could confirm it real quick. But yeah, so he'll go up to 4 attack, and then he can ready it off of Son of Zeus for another 4 attack with overkill. It will be very important for him to get his kind of economy and stuff going for sure, but it just doesn't do anything on that first turn when he really kind of needs that help, in my opinion. So that being said, I think this card is strong, and I think it's going to be a corner point of his kit. I think in terms of a fun factor, I love getting the attack, and I love getting kind of like the overkill. I think those are really cool. I'm kind of a sucker for identity specific upgrades, so I think in terms of where I would put this, probably right here next to Wisdom of Athena. I think it's very cool. I think it's iconic for him, and I think it will be a fun card once you at least have a gift going and you're drawing into your Sons of Zeus's and you're doing everything. But power-wise, I mean, it's just one of those things that it's very powerful when he can get it working. And so for that reason, I think if I put Olympus all the way up here, I think the Mace probably deserves to go right next to it. It's one of those cards that when he starts getting those gifts, when he starts getting rolling, it's probably one of the cornerstone cards of the character. But until he gets to that point, it's going to be kind of shaky at best, in my opinion. But that's it for those reveals, so let's go ahead and keep it moving on here. So then we've got our previews from Krautbammer. I'm not exactly sure how to say this tag, but it's from the Stunned and Confused podcast, which, again, congratulations to them. They got to show off 2 allies here. So these come with the Hercules pack. So first one we have is Namora, Aquaria, Neptunia, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 2 consequential on the thwarting, 1 on the attack. Agent of Atlas and Atlantis, and it has a star icon, and it says Namora gets +1 hit point for each other ally you control. I've heard she can be Captain Marvel in an arm wrestling contest from Gorilla Man. I think this card's really awesome. I love like really big value allies, and if you're in these huge decks that put a bunch of allies on the board, the fact that she can get up to like maybe like 7 hit points is really cool. If you have any sort of way to like buff her attacks out with an inspired, or you have like some command teams going, I think this is a really cool and kind of like efficient ally if you really want to sit and just turn her sideways every single turn. You can almost think of it like an upgrade where it's like if she has 3 attack, you're like tapping a Venom multi-gun every turn because honestly, in most games, they don't go super far over, let's say, like a 7 turn mark. So you just have her dealing 3 damage for 7 turns. It's a 4 cost card that did like 21 damage, which is really, really good. I think this ally is awesome. And I think it's also kind of, strong for what it does, in my opinion. So I think that'll be cool. Okay, but let's go ahead and put Namora on the tier list here. So in terms of fun, let's say I like playing big allies. I think big allies are fun, and I think there's like fun payoff for playing them. So that being said, in fun, I might actually put her at the top tier here. I think like this is an ally you can even think about like building around, like Voltroning in the traditional sense, because the health is so high that you don't even have to worry about doing first aids on her, and she has like good stats. Of course, you'll probably primarily just be doing her attack stat, which 2 attack is good and can be buffed up for sure. But I like this. I think it's a really cool ally. It's something I think I will want to include in some of my leadership decks. In terms of power, though, I would say 4-cost allies that don't necessarily do anything, I wouldn't say are super powerful. I think this is probably going to go somewhere next to Swordsman, if I had to guess. Mostly because it's just like 4-cost allies, they kind of have to do something. You have something like a beast who grabs you, an energy resource when he comes in, or you have something like a an M that gets rid of a minion. But Namora comes in and she's just kind of like, well, I come in and I'll be around for a while, right? But sometimes there'll be some encounter sets that like pool eyes or something, or something that takes over an ally you have on the board. And if it's the only ally in your Voltroning her, it's always that thing where if your ally gets taken, well, you were building up this super big ally with a ton of health and that can stay around the entire game, and it kind of fizzles out because the encounter cards got dealt in a specific way. I think that card's awesome, and I'm looking forward to it. Now, here is a unique one, which might have some interesting kind of opinion. So we have Gilgamesh here, 3-cost ally, Eternal, the first Eternal in the game, 2 thwart, 3 attack, both at 2 consequential on each, with 6 health. As an additional cost to play this card, if you do not have the Eternal trait, Confuse Your Identity. Okay, so this is a really low-cost ally with a lot of health, but because he has 2 consequential, he only really gets 3 activations anyway, but still, that's like 3 costs for 6 thwarting or 3 costs for 9 attack over the course of 3 turns. Pretty good. If you're playing a hero that doesn't care about if you have like steady or stalwart, then this confuse doesn't matter. But if you're playing a hero that doesn't really thwart or have any thwart actions or ever do a basic thwart, this is also kind of a really efficient, low-cost ally that can do some big stuff on the board. Just having a basic ally that can come in thwart for 2 is pretty strong, or dealing 3 damage, even with the 2 consequential, is quite good. And I'm kind of a fan of this ally. Again, the confuse can be rough, so it wouldn't go in every deck, but in terms of it for me, I've been a big fan of a lot of the allies they've shown off in kind of this reveal season. And I think, again, for fun, this might go up where Namora is at for me. I think this is another example of an ally you can really build around, in my opinion. If you want to throw him in like the Maria Hill shield deck and just use the field agent to reduce his consequential, then you think about it, it's a 3-cost ally that's like, I don't know, you double the amount of uses he gets. So it's a 3-cost ally, instead of hitting for 9 damage, hitting for 18, or you're hitting, instead of for 6 thwarting, you're hitting for 12 over the course of a couple turns. Obviously, you'd probably want to speed up his kind of tempo a bit with a command team or something. But I think there's kind of like interesting things this ally can do, and I think it's super fun to think about. I think his design's really fun. In terms of the power, I think because he's basic and because he's 3-cost, I'm actually going to bump his power a bit compared to Namora. I think I'm going to say, with the caveat, in a deck that doesn't care about being confused or has some way to kind of cheat the confuse, or let's say like you have a Jarvis on your board that's getting rid of the confused status from you, there's just a lot of answers to it, right? But essentially, I think in terms of like, if you're a character that doesn't really care about getting confused, I think it's completely fine to take that cost and just roll with it. I think it's really cool, and I think it's really, really fun. So then we get to, I think this is day 4 for the reveal. So we have 2 more cards here, showed by by Marvel Champions JCE TV. I think this is French, if I'm not mistaken. So make sure you go ahead and check them out, support them, give them a like, and all that stuff. Let's check out the first card here. We have a Recruitment Drive, a 3-cost support. Alter ego form only. As an action, discard a Recruitment Drive and choose a player. So I'm not sure what this restriction means. I'm not going to pretend to know what it means. I think it means maybe you can only play it there, or maybe you can only activate the action there, but no, I think it would say alter ego action. So only in alter ego you can play this. You discard a recruitment drive and choose a player, reduce the resource cost of the next ally that player plays this phase to 0. So there's a good comparison given to this card. This is kind of like half of a Cersei, right? One of the big leadership helicarriers that came with Maria Hill. Essentially, you're playing 3 costs to give any player, whenever you use this action, to put in an ally for free. So if you're coordinating with people who have like really big high cost allies, yeah, this is going to be really cool and really fun to have some cool combos with. I love the art here. I love kind of like the theming of the recruitment drive, and you know, Captain America's doing like a promo video and whatnot. I think this is super fun, just card wise, kind of the design of the card. And yeah, I'm a big sucker for like stuff in alter ego and like alter ego synergies and like helping the table and whatnot. So for me, in terms of fun, I think this card is super fun, and I think it will be going in a lot of my decks. I brought the Gifts of Wakanda to the Con of Heroes last year, and I think that this could be in a variation of that deck in the future. So I'm just looking forward to trying to experiment and find cool things to do with that card. In terms of power, I think the card is okay power-wise. If you're thinking about you're kind of taking a hit and the ally does, you need to be fine with taking a tempo hit. So it's kind of like a resource dump, similar to like a resource reserve. But it's kind of restricted because, you know, people need to draw into the allies. It could be a couple turns that you put a big investment into this card and no one has any allies to play. I could definitely see that happening. So just for that reason, I'm just going to throw it in a B tier power-wise, even though I do think it's very cool, fun, and interesting. The last card here, and again, we're going to talk about the Nemesis set cards, but the last card here, this is the one that I was really excited for. I think this card, especially in something like a Cable where you can like guarantee to get it out turn 1, I think this card is absolutely crazy. So we're going to read this real quick. It's a player side scheme with 1 cost, 2 per player threat. Play only if your identity has an Avenger or Shield trait. When defeated, Cable can get around that with the setup ability. When defeated, each player may search their deck and discard power for an Avenger or Shield card, so not just support, upgrade, or anything like that. Add it to their hand, then you reduce the cost to play each of those cards by 2 until the end of the phase. I think this card is insanely powerful. If you just look at it for face value, if you can clear this turn 1 with any hero you're playing, you just get everyone a free search for Avengers Mansion. I would just hand out the mansions before the game starts. You get to search the mansion for free, and then you get to play it for 2 costs. You're essentially setting up a win from turn 1. Everyone, you're going to take a -1 in your hand to get the mansion down, but every single turn after that, you're just getting an extra card in every single one of your hands. You can tap all 4 mansions on someone if they need a big turn, or you don't need the resources that turn. I think in multiplayer, this card is absolutely crazy, and even in solo, if you're playing like leadership, you can just find Maria Hill, drop her for free, get a card. Like, I just think this card is super powerful, and I think the fact that it's limited shows that they probably think that too. It's only Avenger and Shield allowed, and yeah, I think this is one of the ones where in power and fun for me. I love cards that set up the game for success, right? So for me, this is probably going to be the first card that I think will be you know, a 10 out of 10 in terms of S rank on fun for me and S rank on power. I love setting up a game for success, and I think this is a very great card, and it gives you a reason to play. In my opinion, it gives you a reason to play Avengers kind of Justice, some Avengers, and you know, it gives you a reason to play these Avengers in Justice. It gives you a reason to play you know, these Shield characters in Justice, because it's just such a powerful card. You can do some fun team combos with it, and yeah. This is essentially a tier list, but we'll do a quick review here in a second. Let's go ahead and look at the Nemesis set very quickly here. So we have Hercules Nemesis set here. So again, these tie in with his labors a lot, but I haven't super dug into Hercules until I get my hands on him. But people were really hoping that Ares would be like, I think, a non-elite minion or something you could fetch out with one of his labors, or something a bit easier, or something to that effect. But we have Ares here, 0 scheme 3 attack, which I think is super thematic and great. He's an elite minion with 5 health, retaliate 1, which is kind of tough. It says force response. After Ares schemes, deal yourself 1 face down encounter card. So you can't even flip down against this guy. When this guy comes out, you have to deal with him, because he's kind of trading his own activation for an extra encounter card, which could be better, could be worse. But again, it's like one of those things where the god of, even though he's the god of war, right, he is going to make it hurt if you try and run away from him, right, and make him scheme against you. think it's super cool, super thematic, and tough, right? Then we look at here, Olympic Feud. When revealed, place one additional threat here for each Olympus card in play. So opposite to Wonder Man, in solo, this is probably going to be pretty rough because you're going to have a lot of Olympus cards on the board. But in multiplayer, I could definitely see this card being not a big deal. It's probably going to come in with, what, like 5 threat, 6 threat maybe, depending on when and where it comes out. It says Hercules has twice thwarted attempts to overthrow Olympus, orchestrated by his uncle Pluto and his half-brother Ares. It's coming with an extra encounter card. So of course, this isn't a great card you want to keep on the board, but you don't want to keep it on the board by any means, but I don't think it's as bad as Wonder Man's comparatively. And then we have the Lernian Hydra, which is the one that people were they said this card was very tough, and I agree with them. It's very tough. So as a force response, after a character you control attacks and damages the Lernian Hydra, you choose. You either have to spend the Fist resource, or the Lernian Hydra heals 2 damage, aka its head is growing back, right? So the thing about this is because the labor kind of like, I think, gives the minion a tough. I can actually read that labor real quick. But because that labor specifically makes the minion like so much more tanky, right? So it says attached minion gets +6 hit points and gains the elite trait. Attached minion cannot take damage except from Hercules attacks. So yeah, you find a non-elite minion with at least 6 hit points, reveal it, heal all damage, and attach a card. So it's going to come in with 12 health. So you almost want to like take it out in 2 attacks at the most, but ideally you'd want to take it out in 1. Really tough, especially if you get the Hydra as your first labor and you're not necessarily playing aggression, or have a really good strategy to take it out, or there's not a better minion in kind of the encounter deck for you to grab in order to use this for this labor. So I think this is a really tough Nemesis set for Hercules, for a hero that I was kind of going back and forth on. I just need to get it in my hand, see how the character feels to play, and not make any value jumps on the character right now. I think it'll be a ton of fun, and if he's not the strongest character, I don't think it's the end of the world. This is essentially where my tier list ended up at. We have the fun and we have the power here. They're kind of similar, but there's some definite differences. We got like Wisdom of Athena, Cameo is a big difference, right? And so what do you guys think? What cards are you looking forward to the most? Aspect cards, hero cards, or otherwise with these 2 heroes? Let me know down in the description below. Do you think I was cooking? Do you think this take is Charr? Let me know that as well. Thanks so much for watching. I've been talking a lot, yapping a lot for about, oh my gosh, about an hour, which is crazy. I was trying to make this shorter than the last one, but there was so many reveals, ton of cool stuff. Make sure you check out and support every single person in the description. Leave a like, subscribe, all that stuff. This has been Charr. I hope you guys enjoyed. Take care of yourselves. Have a good one. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. See you guys in the next video. Goodbye.